So to the thing here, Matt, where you know what Labor's going to do, right? Which is that until there is the detail behind what the plan is, then Labor's just going to turn around and make up that, net zero equals climate change, not backing net zero equals not caring about climate change. And we see that basically the BS they pulled off on Medicare, they will weaponise and do again now on this. And I don't want that to happen because it was a lie then and it'll be a lie around the corner too.
Well, Paul, what we are doing is something we've successfully done before. So we can point to experience here and contrast that with the failure that the Labor Party has presided in their own climate policy. What we are saying is let's re-establish something called the Emissions Reduction Fund. A lot of you might not know about it, but that's because when policies work well, you tend not to read much about them, right? You only really find out about pink bats and school halls when everything goes wrong. We had, when we were in government, something called the Emissions Reduction Fund. It actually reduced emissions by 81 million tonnes. It did so at an average price of around $12 a tonne. That's about a third of what the current carbon price is. The Labor Party's net zero plan, in their own projections, shows carbon pricing is going to $300 a tonne to get to net zero. And so that's the contrast. We can do this by working with businesses, by encouraging investments that increase efficiency without punishing people for creating wealth. The Labor Party's plan is effectively a punishment mechanism. So if you create wealth, if you're in an industry that creates jobs, you've got to pay something called a safeguard mechanism, which means you have to reduce your emissions 5% a year. You have to go out and buy carbon credits. That's a carbon tax. We would get rid of those taxes. We don't believe in taxing the Australian community until morale improves and net zero, we get to net zero. That is ridiculous. And in terms of what was said just before, well, look, we're back here fighting these issues only because the Albanese government has failed. I mean, if their net zero plan had done what they said it would do and lower power prices by $275, create 600,000 jobs. Their plan, 100%. Go back and look at their modelling, said 604,000 jobs would be created in hydrogen and critical minerals and all these things. If they'd done that, I wouldn't be here, Paul. I'd be completely discredited. I'd have to walk out this place with my tail between my legs because they have succeeded. And so I don't accept that the Australian people think this is all settled. It's certainly not settled for those people that are struggling to pay their energy bills right now. It's certainly not settled for those 1,000 Tomago workers who are facing an uncertain future when they were promised just at the start of this year. Anthony Albanese went up to Tomago 9 months ago and used them as a prop to launch his political campaign, saying that we would make things in Australia from green energy. And now they're facing a loss of their jobs. That's why this debate is continuing, only because of the Labor Party's failures.
100%. Let's move to the home insurance part of it here, right? Which is, now again, hardly scientific but worth noting, okay? 3 out of 4 Australians are worried that storms, fires and floods will make their home insurance premiums skyrocket in the next 12 months. The source, a reader poll on 9.com.au, okay? Ponds Institute level stuff, right? But still, it's a poll worth discussing. The fresh fears come as more than half of those surveyed have already seen their premiums spike in Australia's increasingly wild weather. Now, again, I'm not going to play the Adam Band of it. I refuse to fall into every fire, every flood, every issue, automatically proof thereof. Right? There were Titanic moments, whether we like it or not, about bushfires a few years ago, smoke, and that was a big moment.
Yeah, Menindee Lakes 2019 election was very much...
Because you could see it.
And the smoke was over the major capitals, particularly Sydney, for sure.
But something also people can see is that one of the biggest drivers of inflation in Australia right now is insurance. And I'm not just talking about, the second car and the boat. We're talking about the house. And if you live in one of the areas that have been affected, either previously hardcore or they draw up a map and think one day, this is very expensive.
It is expensive.
Yet no one wants to touch this because it's the market doing what the market does.
Well, they tend to insure by postcode, and if the postcode has been affected, whether or not your property was individually affected,
correct,
the premiums go
up. The high bit of Taree or the low bit of Lismore, they're counted the same. Yeah.
Good luck. And there are probably already postcodes that are uninsurable. And so that then gets aggregated across the board. But look, weather events, they come and go, I accept that, but there have been plenty of them, and we'll never know whether insurance companies are gouging or whether this is a realistic mapping of what the future looks like, but those prices are going to continue to go up And I think that's irrespective of who's in government. So it's going to be a part of life for whoever's in government, really trying to manage that.
But also, Matt, the too clever by half is there are more people than ever before, more homes than ever before, which means there are more people who eventually end up in the risk areas because that's what they can afford, that's where they choose, all the rest of it here. But again, in our national conversation, there's never a question about this in question time. There's not an inquiry about it. No, because it's just, that's just one of the things. I mean, today they were willing to blow their top at Optus, but I didn't see anyone blowing their top about insurance, and I know which one actually keeps people up at night at the moment.
The real cost driver of insurance premiums, Paul, is inflation. I mean, your premium is going to be set by an insurance company based on how much it costs to replace your home, to replace your goods, or replace your car that you might lose. And the reality is all those things have gone up in the last few years. I mean, how much is it costing to buy things? That's why there's a big driver in the last few years that we haven't had massive storms or anything in the last few years, or cyclones. Cyclones are going down in this country. That's what's driving it. And that's why this energy cost blowout we've seen under this government is so costly, because it affects everything. It's not just your electricity bill. It affects the price of concrete. It affects the price of steel. It affects, therefore, the price of rebuilding a home. It affects everything, and it then flows through to your insurance premiums too.
All right. Thank you, mate. See, I love it. I love a good adult conversation, one everyone can hack and be involved in, butt it up or not. We'll see you again next week, lads. That's our Monday panel, and I appreciate it.